Fresh. Surprise pricing changes for Power Apps and a way to launch your PowerPoint slides from the app directly into a Teams meeting. All that and more. Subscribe to stay in the know. This is the MS Refresh Show. Hi there, and welcome to the Matt and Sean 365 Refresh Show. This is episode 28 for the work week of July 5th, 2021. Coming to you live from the west coast of the U.S., my name is Sean Bugler.
And from the east coast of the U.S., my name is Matt Wade.
Matt, I'm so blurry.
This is you recovering from your long weekend, I think.
Apparently, my camera had a better weekend than I did.
Apparently. At least we can see you, and it's not overheating and requiring you to put one of those 1980s three-speed adjustable fans going on it.
Oh, yeah. Boy, if I had the room behind this thing, I probably would. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just got back from a nice vacation like a couple hours ago kind of thing. And I don't know, enjoying the last few hours off before I have to go back to work.
Boy, do I hear that, except for the part about going back to work. Because I'm already here. Hybrid work means that I can just go back to work immediately.
Yep. No, that's true. What about you? What's new with you? Anything good?
My partner and I, we drove out to the middle of nowhere, Nevada over the weekend and saw her family. It was her grandma's 96th birthday.
Awesome.
Which, well, depends on who you ask, I guess. But it was good. You know, it was nice to go and see her family. You know, we don't see them enough because it's like, you can't fly there. There's the closest town, I think, is the closest like legitimate airport is 5 or 6 hours drive away.
Yeah. Sure.
In Salt Lake City. So you have to like fly over it and then drive, or you just cannonball from here.
Right.
And it's 10 hours. But no, it was good. Yeah. You know, fireworks, patriotism, hot dogs.
Yep.
You know.
America right there.
America.
Yep.
But
definitely.
It was good. That's how is the book tour going? I hear you going across the country. Did I hear right that Oprah picked your book as the book of the month?
I would be very surprised if that happened. I think she has some bigger books to look at, but yeah, you know, this old thing right here, I got to actually hold in my hand.
The flesh. And
the impact of holding this in my hand, which was to make good on a promise I made to my family, my girlfriend, and apparently a lot of my friends who secretly hated my longer beard, was that the beard would be shaved off when I held the book in my hand. So that happened over the weekend. Everybody cheered. Way too many people commented on my Facebook post with opinions on that. Apparently they felt that they should not have shared until it was gone and it didn't hurt anybody's feelings. So
good.
I got to know who my true friends are apparently through that process. But yeah, it's a lot cooler right now.
Yeah, that's you must feel like 10 pounds lighter after shaving that thing off.
Let's hope. That'll make up for everything I did over the weekend. But yeah.
Well, that's awesome. No, I'm really glad to see. Yeah, I will go ahead and say that I thought you wore the beard very well. I just thought it was fun to razz you.
That makes 2. Wow.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I think that's super awesome. And of course, those of you who are watching live and those who will watch it after, you can buy it now on Amazon. You can get it in person like this guy right here, or you can get the Kindle version, which is what I did. I liked the Kindle version. I just like carrying that stuff around.
It's heavy. Yeah, it's 400 pages of just chock full of amazingness. So it's a little bit.
And if I'm not mistaken, you said that you're working on a Microsoft Teams coffee table book. Did I hear that right?
It's going to be full of stock photos of people very angry at software. Yes. That's my plan.
Well, congratulations, man.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about here.
We do.
Do you want to go ahead and just jump into the news?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
This is the news.
Announced right before the long weekend here in the US, Power Apps just got a massive price cut. In a blog post, Microsoft announced that pricing for both Power Apps per user and per app plans were being cut in half, from $40 to $20 per user and from $10 to $5 per app, respectively. The pricing changes, which take effect later this year on October 1st, represent a sea change in the way that Microsoft has tried to monetize the low-code, no-code app development platform up to now. Additionally, the per-app licensing plan has been dramatically simplified and will now apply to just one app or one Power Apps portal, rather than the previous 2 apps in a portal. The Power Platform has been criticized in the past for confusing licensing terms and high price points, so it's no surprise that this change is drawing excitement. It's unclear whether other aspects of the Power Platform's licensing strategies are also undergoing any sort of reevaluation, but, if anything, the message is coming through loud and clear that they're listening. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly what you want to say, even if you're me, even in Teams. Well, worry no longer. Coming later this month, Microsoft is bringing suggested replies to Teams chats in the desktop. Suggested replies have been in a constant state of rollout since late last year for both iOS and Android, but it's been pretty clear that the team has been feeling out a few things in the process. Separately, over the past year, Microsoft has been steadily working to improve suggested replies in Outlook too, and it's clear now that the intent is to bring this convenient functionality to even more Microsoft 365 surfaces. Suggested replies will present users with up to 3 recommended responses to choose from in the context of a chat. There's no indication whether the responses will be inspired by past messages you've sent, but hopefully they will be. Otherwise, people are going to be pretty suspicious when I start saying crazy things like, yes, I would be happy to do that. The SharePoint add an app experience is getting an overhaul later this month. For those of you who work in SharePoint frequently, you know that much of the app administrative experience is still trapped in the classic look and feel. This roadmap entry and the corresponding post in the Admin Center posted on July 1st seem to hint that Microsoft is finally starting to train their spotlight on the space. According to what's been shared, users can look forward to, quote, a brand new modernized store, end quote, which should be a welcome change for both site owners interested in seeing what third-party solutions are available and for vendors interested in attracting new customers. Despite the company's full-throated support for Microsoft Teams, email isn't going anywhere, and it remains a core pillar of Microsoft's notification engine, no less. Particularly when it comes to SharePoint, it hasn't always been easy to manage email notifications without wanting to tear someone's arms off. Well, your colleagues' arm sockets can rest easy. Help is on the way. Later this month, users will get access to SharePoint email notifications directly within the SharePoint UI. Reading from the roadmap, quote, today, users automatically receive email notifications when someone likes or comments on a page or news posts they created, when they're @mentioned in a comment or reply, or when someone replies to one of their comments. Additionally, users receive weekly digest of news they may have missed. With the new email notification settings feature, users will be able to set their preferences to receive none, some, or all of these notifications, end quote. The setting will be found on the SharePoint homepage in the settings menu when it arrives in a tenant near you, hopefully sometime soon. An update to the file sharing experience in Microsoft Teams that's been rolling out since March has been delayed. According to an update in the Message Center, the update release, which should have been completed by mid-April, is now scheduled to conclude by the end of July. To refresh your memory, seeing as it's been a while since we've talked about this last, the update would allow users to create a shareable link for any file stored in Teams and directly set the appropriate permissions, particularly within the context of the conversations you're already having. The real excitement, however, was that users would also be able to set permissions for files stored in SharePoint or OneDrive directly in line while composing a private chat or starting a channel conversation. Previously announced is generally available, which, broadly speaking, generally means it's fully baked. Microsoft has made the interesting decision to roll back its release of modern comments for PowerPoint. Now, the feature was off by default, in all fairness, and only available if admins flipped a switch in the Admin Center, which means most users likely aren't affected. However, Microsoft taking a look at the original release, it's not hard to see why there might have been some concerns. According to Microsoft's own notes, quote, modern comments can't be read by PowerPoint 2019 or older, including subscription and perpetual versions. End users will be notified about unsupported comments in their presentations with a prompt to open the file in PowerPoint for the web to review the modern comments, end quote. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a lot of work just to see comments in a presentation. The update hasn't been canceled, but it's likely that the team is headed back to the drawing board to determine how best to move forward with this rollout. Speaking of PowerPoint delays, the quote speaking of PowerPoint delays, the quote present to Teams feature, end quote, for Windows, macOS, and PowerPoint in the web has also seen its release window punted to the end of July for commercial users and the end of August for our friends in government. The feature, which would have allowed users to click a Present in Teams button in PowerPoint to present their slides into an ongoing Teams meeting using the PowerPoint Live mode, was originally set to arrive between mid-May and the end of June for commercial and late June to mid-July for government. What's that? You want more good news? If you insist, I give the people what they want. Microsoft previously announced that Power Apps using the SharePoint connector would soon be able to display images stored in Microsoft lists. Welcome functionality that was previously limited to SharePoint libraries. Something I've personally been in need of as recently as last week. Unfortunately, the rollout for this update has also been delayed. Originally scheduled to begin rolling out to targeted release in mid to late June, support can now be expected in mid to late July, with standard release following suit in late August.
That was the news.
All right, Sean, that was very, very well done.
Thank you.
First off, I hadn't heard the one about the PowerPoint modern comments. Let me just say one word. Yikes. I mean, modern comments are great, but when you're telling people that they can't use them in the earlier versions of the app, like, whoa, that's kind of a big one. I hadn't been aware of that one.
Yeah, and I candidly, you talk about like comments in general in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and like, hey, we've updated them. Great. Now, don't get me wrong. Modern comments are great, but that's not generally the news that I pay attention to.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you actually like read the message center, the original one before they pulled it back,
yeah,
the number of caveats that they threw into that was staggering.
Yeah.
That anybody was like, oh, it's fine. Like that 90% of people who have a desktop app installed are just not going to be able to see those comments unless they go to the web. Like, I don't know about your organization. It's not true. I know exactly how your organization will respond, but my organization would not be happy with that.
Yeah. Once you have to throw an asterisk or 2 or 3 on a feature announcement or just anything, support, whatever, like that's not really going to be great. So I guess we'll see how they figure that one out. But that wasn't actually really the topic for me, at least today. And I figure your topic is going to be something different. So like what's standing out for you today?
I kicked off with it because to me, it's such an interesting peek behind the curtain into how Microsoft is thinking about this stuff. It's Microsoft changing their licensing strategy for Power Apps. Well, not their strategy necessarily, but taking a 50% cut in both of their Power Apps premium plans, their per user and their per app pricing. And on top of that, simplifying it, which is, when's the last time somebody said, hey, Microsoft simplified their licensing?
Yeah, right. Oh, definitely, yeah.
So yeah, the per user plan, which for those of you who don't know, the Power Apps, which is Microsoft's low code, no code app development platform, you can use for free with most Microsoft 365 licensing SKUs, as long as you're not using any sort of like premium connectors or things like that. So I mean, if it's connecting with SharePoint, if it's connecting to, and please don't do this, to an Excel data set.
Do it.
If it works and it makes you happy, go for it.
Building your job security.
You can use it for free. Like that, none of that's changed. A lot of people don't know that, and a lot of people see the licensing and that scares them away from it. But you can use Power Apps pretty much for free for a lot of stuff. But if you want to start to tap into things like Dataverse or premium connectors, if you're going outside the Microsoft universe, for example, then you need premium licensing. And the way it works right now is that you can license on a per user basis. You can say that these 30 people or these 30,000 people are all going to need to use these premium apps. And so in that particular instance, up to now, that's been $40 per user per month. $40 per user per month. Which, again.
And how much is Office?
Right.
Good Lord.
So you think about the value proposition, and it's not to say that Power Apps can't be super useful. And I mean, you're thinking per user, that's as many apps as they can, get their hands on.
And this is just to clarify the license, because I know Power Automate licensing. I still don't know Power Apps licensing. So I'm learning a lot as you say all this. Do you have to have that license to read and use the app that connects to a premium connector, or is that for the builder only?
Oh no, boy, it would be so much cheaper. No, that's consumption.
God.
Yeah. So that's expensive. And so you can see here that, this is simultaneously Microsoft trying to, cheapen this up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's not hard to imagine that not a lot of people were biting, because bear in mind, like for generally, and there are exceptions to this, but generally Microsoft sells these things in bundles. So it's not like you're going, let me get one of those and two of those,
And it's a real shame, I think, it's just so obviously clear that the Microsoft 365 team or the Office team, whatever you want to call it, is hierarchically separate, siloed, if you will, from the Power Platform / business apps side, which is Dynamics, Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, because there is no connection from a real world perspective between the licensing of AEG 135 and the Power Apps, Power Automate, even the licensing guide for Apps, Automate. I think that's it. I think they have that one PDF that I have to reference every so often. And it's like, no kidding, like 35 pages long. Like, it's just incredibly complex and difficult to understand, and how it relates to Office licenses and how it relates to Dynamics licenses and yada. But like I think one of those things where it's like, this is the organization that always tells people that, de-silo your organization by using our products and whatnot. But like in some certain situations, they are the most siloed of organizations out there. And this is one of those where it's just, Spataro and I guess Philips, they would be the two equivalents or something. They're the entire tree under each of them, they just don't work together on the user side of their products. They clearly have
they have lunch together.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. And I'm sure they're very friendly together. I'm sure they talk to each other a lot, but like, it just comes down to there's no holistic viewpoint from the outside of how to deal with the products that those two organizations are creating and selling, because of course you have your engineering side and you have your sales side. And it's just really frustrating from that perspective. So anyway, that's interesting how they're at least they're kind of stepping back from what's there. So what was the end? What's the ultimate delta? What's the change going to be? The end point?
So it's they're dropping it down to $20 per user per month for per user, and then their per app plan, which is so per user, that user license can use as many of these premium fancy apps as they'd like. On the per app side of things, an organization can say, this app is super important to us. We're going to pay for this app, and anybody in their organization can use it. And so in that instance, that's $5 per user per app per month, which sounds more complicated than it is. I've got this really nice app and I've got 300 people. I can pay $5 times 300 monthly, and everybody gets to use that app. So it's a little bit cheaper, and they did simplify. That's down from $10 per user per month, or per user per app per month. Yeah. And that was originally 2 apps and a portal, which to call a plan per app. And then, yes, you get more, but it was just confusing because people are seeing $10 and going, could I pay less and just get the one that I'm trying to use?
Yeah.
So now that's down to just one app or one Power Apps portal.
My difficulty, other than I'm still not fully versed on the Power Apps licensing in general, because I've never had to really read it for a real use case, but just in discussing with past customers, current job, other just, people reach out to me, my biggest gripe isn't so much the licensing, isn't so much the pricing of Power Apps. If you want to pay that much money and you find that has the value, by all means, go for it. My issue is that to roll out, say, like an enterprise app, you have to now provide Power Apps basic licensing, whatever comes with the M365 license that you're working with, to everybody. And now you've, opened up the floodgates to all these potentially unregulated, unreviewed, one-off apps that one person creates, and there's no, expectation or governance. Like, there can be governance, but even that doesn't hold people accountable to ensuring that when they create something, they have it reviewed, they have it documented, they have guidance on how to use it and all that kind of stuff. It just kind of kills me because you have to get over that threshold if you're the first enterprise app to break the seal of Power Apps organization-wide. And then second, if you need to connect to some, Dataverse really is probably going to be the one that everybody, would ever want to go to on the premium side to start, because you're not supposed to use Excel as database. SharePoint has its item threshold limit, which I realize doesn't fully apply to Power Apps because you're not looking at the views and whatnot. But
there are snags.
Yeah, and SharePoint's, a list in SharePoint isn't really a database either. So like if Dataverse is supposed to be that thing, you're now going to pay, just for Dataverse, you're paying that $40, now $20. And I just looked up E3. So E3 on an annual commitment, not, going through a reseller or anything like that. But if you just purchase it right now, it's $20 per user per month. That's the Power Apps, the new Power Apps license. That's crazy.
Oh yeah. And it's readily apparent when you look at that discrepancy that the Power Platform lives on the Dynamics business application side of things. Like they live in their whole other universe in terms of pricing scheme, which I'm not disagreeing that there's
not just pricing. Not just pricing, it's sales. They need to say that we had this much, we had X revenue, right? Like, because they can't say that, 43% of, Office 365 E3 users had active monthly usage or whatever in Power Apps and that's not money, right? Like you can say that they had active usage, but that's not actually making that silo revenue, which I understand the problem there, but at the same time, there's definitely a way for these organizations to do this and say, all right, usage from my app to you implies that I don't know, funnel you money or something like to affect your revenue stream to show that you have value or that you add value to this company as Microsoft. I don't know, just kind of crazy. There was a question, which I think you're probably covered, but I just wanted to make sure, does the price cut also apply to subscriptions like E3 and E5?
This is a really good question. So yes, the price cut impacts everybody that has premium Power Apps licensing. It also, there was a question about whether, not here, but elsewhere, about whether this was going to impact, how this was going to impact internationally, or whether this was like a, US 4th of July special.
Yeah, right.
And this impacts everybody. This is a global change. So yeah, this is, if you're paying for Power Apps premium licensing, whether it's per user or per app, that will run through your current commitment with no change. But for anybody that's gearing up to, you can either take advantage of some limited specials. We're going to drop a link in the show notes. They're running some kind of promos right now to compensate for the fact that these pricings don't kick in until October 1st. Otherwise, you could wait until October 1st and take advantage of these things here.
All right. So you're saying that this isn't the 4th of July, get on down to Big Al's car lot to get that best used car that you've ever had kind of special?
Yeah, there's not just a warehouse full of Power Apps licenses that they gotta liquidate now.
So disappointing.
So Matt, what caught your attention? I'm curious.
So I thought that the launch a PowerPoint slideshow to Teams is a really, really good one. You had reported that that was delayed till July. Of course, if you look at the roadmap, it says it's rolling out and it's due in Mac in June, Windows in May, and PowerPoint for the web in May. So apparently the admin center has more information than the public roadmap, which is disappointing.
This is my surprised face.
Yep. I do have it on my Mac. I do not have it for the same account on my Windows device, and I don't have it in the web version on either of them. So I'm not sure how that decided to roll out the way that it did.
All three of them were called out as being delayed in rollout. Yeah. So
which is funny because the Mac version is due a month later than the other two. So I'm not sure why I have that on my Mac, but so be it. It's out there. It's public. It's really cool. If you play around with it, it's under the slideshow tab, and you can just press present to Teams. Now you'll have to be in a meeting at the time, a Teams meeting that's running. But this is really nice because even with that new share menu in Teams, which has the whole PowerPoint Live section, and that lists all of those recently opened or edited PowerPoint slideshows, which I think, could be wrong, but I think those are limited to your files, not what's shared with you. But again, I could be wrong on that. I've never tested it. This helps because those names are, a lot of times your names are long, and that that menu is only so wide, so you can't necessarily see if you do name files with different versions or have different dates associated with them, whatever. It's not super obvious. So then of course you can click to upload it, or you can go searching in your OneDrive to do it, which isn't always the best experience. So if you have the file open, you've been working on it, just press share to Teams, and it's really, really good. Now it opens up in Teams in the PowerPoint Live experience, and actually we're just having some back and forth, or I was just having some back and forth with some folks who are PowerPoint MVPs about feature sets that are missing in the what do you call it, the web app. And PowerPoint Live, the Teams sharing version of PowerPoint, is basically PowerPoint for the web, rendering your file that way. It basically, essentially, not, it's I'm simplifying that, but it's essentially that. So you're going to have some features that may not work. So if you're not using that yet, or you've never really used that, you just bring up the file on your screen and you share your window, or you share your screen or whatever, because you get the full experience of the desktop app, or you're used to that, or your users are, which I would be surprised if people tell me that their users aren't used to just doing that. The PowerPoint Live is great, and it adds more and more features as time go on, but there are still some features that just don't work really well or don't work at all. Advanced transitions, animations especially, kind of kill me. There are some font and graphics issues that pop up. But otherwise, this new experience in PowerPoint Live, where you have the presenter view and the notes and the slide sorter and whatnot being available, is super handy. And now you just have a one-click access to just launch that and make it available. So I think that's a really, really good feature. I cannot wait for that to come out, because that's probably how I'm going to do it from now on, so I can ensure I'm always picking the right one, or the right file, and not just guessing if there happen to be similarly named files all on my list and I can't really tell which is which.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's one of those features. It's a quality of life thing that really speaks to, in my head, it's an executive, maybe, I don't know who it is, but it's Satya in a meeting, and he's looking at the damn presentation and he wants to share it, and he's like, why can't it's here, I'm looking at it, why can't all of you see what I'm looking at? So it makes perfect sense to be able to throw it, not to draw parallels, but Google's been able to do this for a while now.
In fact, I was
same button.
I was just in Sheets yesterday, and it gave a little pop-up and said, hey, you can send this directly to a Hangouts right now. And it's like, oh, yeah, I haven't seen that before. That's kind of
cool. A strange coincidence.
I know, right? Yeah.
This was kind of interesting. I liked this here. Would be super damn cool to be able to drag and drop a PowerPoint into a Teams meeting and just start presenting it. I agree. That's one of those features that you kind of hope already exists. Like, I'm going to go try this when we're done here.
Yeah, right.
I don't think it's going to work, but I'd like to see that. Right,
definitely. One of the things I've been kind of pushing on, especially with adoption and guidance on, especially PowerPoint and Teams, is the whole designing and building for the feature set that you have available. So one of the major benefits of PowerPoint Live is that it uses significantly less bandwidth than sharing your screen and showing slides. Yes. And that is a huge impact on the people watching, huge impact on your video going through and all that kind of stuff. So like PowerPoint Live really should be what you're using. And this, present to Teams button in PowerPoint is really what you should be using, just for the sake of your meetings being higher quality. Camera quality is not going to get pixelated. Voice isn't going to be get scratchy or things like that because of a sharing session. So that's sort of a big deal. But if you're going to do that and you want to benefit from that, you do have to kind of design your slides based on that, limitation of what PowerPoint for the web has. So I've been telling people, design your slides or build them in the web if possible, and then amend them in the desktop app if you need further features to edit. But when it comes to presenting, always just assume that you're going to be in sort of the, I'm going to say limited. It's kind of a harsh word to say.
No, it is limited.
It's kind of harsh though, based on the amount of progress they've made just over the last year, or even like 6 or 9 months. But
absolutely not. I'm not. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I'm impressed with what the team has done, and I can absolutely acknowledge progress. Yeah, but I'm not satisfied. I'm more, because I'm the crazy person that will build wildly complex presentations.
Yeah.
Same. That, I love complex transitions.
Yeah, me too.
I love morph, I love all of that. And so keep going. I'm happy with I'm happy with the progress we've made. Give me it all.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And the other kind of cool thing is if you don't already have it, you'll have it soon, is the implementation of the presenter mode. So where you're sitting in front of, the slide itself, or if you have the slide up here, like in newscaster mode, whatever. If you do like to do the whole you in front of it, the standout mode, I think is what it's called. You kind of have to start designing your slides to allow for empty space where your body is going to be, which I don't
hear
think
that,
people are
everybody.
really
If you'd like to be your own MS Refresh Show newscaster, you can do that using PowerPoint Live.
Yeah, no, that's true. All right, so I think that's pretty good on the topic I was talking about. Let's jump into some of the comments here. So
yeah, we had some questions here.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw one that popped out. You want to drop in, or I'll take a look here myself.
This is just a fun one. Like, this question pops up.
Oh,
I feel
yeah,
like
sure.
Every time you and I talk about SharePoint, which is,
Yep.
what role do you see SharePoint playing going forward? Seems like more pieces of SharePoint are being stripped out and incorporated into Teams or standalone apps by themselves. I know my take on this which is SharePoint's just getting bigger.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
It doesn't. Good.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
It's easy to look at Microsoft putting all this weight behind Teams, the brand. But if you take a step back and take a look at what Microsoft is doing, take a look at Stream, take a look at all the like the fancy Viva stuff that's happening behind the scenes right now, whether it's Viva Connect or Viva Learning. Take a look at Syntex. All the stuff that's happening behind the scenes lives in SharePoint. It is on SharePoint. The SharePoint, the brand, may be as big as it'll ever be, and it'll probably get a little bit smaller here and there. But SharePoint, the platform, is so much bigger today than it was 12 months ago, 24 months ago, 36 months ago. It's so much bigger now. So is it going anywhere? No. Are we going to hear the name less? Maybe, but I don't think we're ever going to lose it by any stretch.
No. Yeah, not anytime soon, at least. So I completely agree with that. I think, you just ask yourself the question of, all these files being uploaded to Teams. Teams isn't storing 100, petabytes of data, per day or whatever. It's SharePoint holding that data, and OneDrive is built on SharePoint. So really, it's SharePoint holding all the OneDrive data. So I think the other big thing you mentioned, Viva, especially Connections. Viva Connections is essentially take your intranet and put it into Teams, right? And your intranet is SharePoint. And anytime you go to an intranet in the browser, it's going to see SharePoint up there. Anytime you want to do any sort of advanced file manipulation or organization of your Teams files, or even like files shared in a private chat, going from OneDrive, that's going to be a SharePoint experience, right? Now, granted, eventually Teams will get probably most, if not all, of those features that SharePoint has built in, but it's not there yet, and it probably won't be there for at least a year or two, I would think, based on the priorities that they've been putting into Teams. But yeah, it's you can't do your intranet and you can't do your file sharing without SharePoint. And you're right. I don't know if the growth model of the brand name of SharePoint is going to grow a whole lot. It's going to be very large, but the actual usage of the platform is going to skyrocket, I think, or if it already is. And I don't know, I would kind of compare it to, I'm not the most techie person here, but the first thing I could think of was like Unix. Like, not everybody says Unix, but a lot of people use systems built on Unix. Is it roughly invisible in a lot of those situations? Perhaps, but it's there. It's making that foundation work for you so that you can use, a Mac or Linux or whatever, and Windows happens to be built on Unix, if anything. But just kind of tossing that comparison out.
Yeah, no, that's a good comparison. I like that. Let's do another question. You see anything?
Let's see what we got here.
While you're pulling one up here, I'm just going to throw out a model example of a real fan.
That's right.
Past midnight in Sweden. Better than being asleep. It's Matt and I joke about this a lot. Like, in my head, I'm like, I wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah. So I don't know what's, yeah.
It's always nice to hear that there are people that enjoy listening to a couple of bums
appreciate you
talk to each other.
So here's one. Do you guys think lists will ever rival Monday.com? Click up, Airtable, fill in the blank. Those ads that I get on Instagram and YouTube all the time for tracking and whatnot. I don't know. What do you think about that one, Sean?
No, I don't. I think that they'll be competitive in some respects. Like ClickUp is an interesting example because that's kind of like a kind of an office suite type thing that they're seemingly trying to build. But like Monday or Asana, focusing on those, or Airtable is an example. Microsoft has never worried itself to try and compete with every like company that they have a feature for. I think about Microsoft Forms and SurveyMonkey as an example. Forms has been out for years. Is it anywhere near the robustness of SurveyMonkey? No. And in fact, they sneezed and Forms Pro came out for 20 minutes and then disappeared and became, Dynamics Voice Pro or something.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
So no, I don't think so. I think that it'll continue to be invested in. SharePoint lists and now Microsoft lists, to me, was always one of the coolest parts of SharePoint. And likewise is going to continue to be one of the coolest parts of Microsoft 365 simply because of just how flexible it is. And I think that that's something that Microsoft is keenly aware of, now more so than ever. And I think we're going to see them continue to invest in that. I also think, I'm not making any predictions necessarily, but I also think that Microsoft is aware of the fact that people are going to continue to try to use it like a database and that we may see little kind of winks towards making this a little bit easier, whether it's, real-time updates, offline access, things like that.
Yep. Nope. I agree with all that. I think, I think all these, I'll say minor feature updates, or like even the brand change with lists becoming its own brand outside of SharePoint. I do not think that the goal is to provide any sort of actual competition with those other sort of niche apps that are out there. And, if you're small and you're, able to run with it and be scrappy and build something that people actually really want, and the user interface can be really good, those apps are going to become super popular, because I think lists, in lists defense, lists has been able to do pretty much most of the stuff that Monday.com has been able to do for a long time before Monday.com even existed. It's just that you have to have a sort of pro level or like lower level dev kind of understanding of how to use those features. Now, is the conditional formatting a lot better now? And like, yeah, sure. And like, the pill, really Microsoft Lists is just SharePoint lists with the pills, right? Kind of in the conditional formatting, to really boil it down. But like, those pills have a lot of value to people, those colorful pill shaped things. And so be it. But if you can meet the 75 or 65 or 60% need to convince IT to tell their users, don't go out and buy that other thing, because that's one more thing we're going to have to support. It's going to cost more money. And you have something that does almost the same thing here. And you can integrate it with Project, or, use it with Planner, or, fill in the blank. But yeah, I don't think they have they don't have an incentive to make all those, UI updates, especially. I think the thing for a lot of these is the UI. Not so much the functionality. I think functionality exists in lists for that and Planner and some other things, but the UI just isn't there for some of them. But yeah,
Microsoft's business strategy in this space has always been good enough. Get it to good enough, and let's keep going.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's do one more, maybe. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. Let's go ahead and let's see. What speaks to me? We'll throw this one up here. I don't have a good answer to this one here, but it's a fun one to think about.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on any ideas on an Adobe Pro type app from Microsoft? So I assume the question is, we're talking like PDF, like robust PDF support, which is, it is a big hole in this productivity ecosystem, this business document generating ecosystem. What do you think?
It would be nice, because having an Acrobat Pro license is not cheap per person to have to provide those features. But has Microsoft ever done that? I mean, they've had the opportunity to provide a pro version or pro editing tool for PDFs for decades, and they've never done it.
Yeah, so I'll come out strong and say not a chance. Microsoft, take a look at the history of Microsoft. The battlefield is littered with companies that Microsoft both pre and post antitrust,
right,
just borrowed entire companies' business models.
Yeah.
But there are some very specific instances where they've decided to become frenemies rather than co-opt the business model. I think Apple is a great example of that. And I think Adobe is perhaps the greatest frenemy in the tech industry.
Yeah, for both platforms, Mac OS and for Windows. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like no company has any interest getting into this space. And part of it is, of course, because, you think PDF and you immediately think Adobe. Like they own that space. They they literally invented that space.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think Microsoft has any interest in getting into that. Will we continue to see them kind of toe the line and make that experience a little bit better, whether it's, with the file viewer in OneDrive SharePoint or, like a lot of people don't know, you can actually open and edit most PDFs that come out of Adobe in Microsoft Word. And if you go to File and Open, you can actually convert a PDF into an editable Word document. It doesn't always come out great.
I was going to say, has it ever worked for you as you would expect it? Oh, really?
I mean, so it depends on how like graphically heavy it is. But if it's something that, especially if it came out of Word and you spit it out into a PDF and you brought it back in, it works. Yeah. But are we ever going to see them step into that space wholeheartedly? No. That no different than we're not going to see Apple come out with like a genuine Photoshop competitor.
Right. I've never, I don't think I've ever had the Word edit PDF feature ever work. And I now consider it in my head to be the same thing as recall an email, where, it works 1% of the time, but that 1%, every planet is aligned in the solar system and it requires some hex to be placed to make sure that it actually works. So those two things are equal to me in my mind. One thing I will say,
a small child.
A quick shout out to Adobe Acrobat Reader, the free version. So I used that to do all the comments on my book. So they would send me the typeset version of the book in PDF format. I didn't realize how feature rich that is from the commenting standpoint. So there's an entire commenting.
That is an incredibly robust application.
Yeah, entire commenting toolbar that has the ability to highlight text, and then have a comment attached to it, have an insert sign with a comment attached to it. We have requests at work all the time for, pro PDF editing things. And a good portion of the requests are actually really just, we want to be able to comment on this thing and send it back in a way that's readable, regardless of what tool you're opening it with. Right. And Acrobat Reader is pleasantly surprising from the free perspective and what features it offers. Now, can you edit the text? No, you cannot. But you can do almost anything else on top of the page and send it to somebody else, and they can open it in a clean reader view of it, and it works perfectly fine. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised by the free version of Acrobat.
And that actually brings us to our sponsorship portion of the episode. This episode was brought to you by Adobe.
Yes,
Adobe,
right, if only.
Make pictures good.
If only. Yeah, right, exactly. That's great. There was one quick thing I wanted to toss in here. Yeah, okay. So before we finish out here, so we all agree that Office web apps aren't anywhere close to the native apps. However, we found a third version, Teams version. Why Teams is not using the web apps? I'm noticing a few functions in the Teams apps that are missing. So also to boil something down to a simplistic level that doesn't actually represent the technical level of it, but the version that opens in Teams is the Office for the web version. So if you open up a PowerPoint presentation in Teams, or you open up an Excel spreadsheet or a Word doc in Teams, that's basically just rendering the web version of that. So there might be a couple features here and there, I guess, might not align, but I'm pretty sure it's one-to-one, or it should be. So if you were to open that file up in the browser, you would have the same experience. Pretty sure about that, but it's definitely a wrapper that I'm pretty sure about. So
yeah, my understanding was that as well. I think the only caveat I would throw in there is that because, up until now, this has been like Electron based, that there might've been some hard coded shell pieces to it that
true.
Yeah. Maybe bring that in, but to that end, we talked about it in the last episode that they're moving to EdgeView 2 as the new rendering engine for consumer to start, eventually enterprise. And I mean, we're talking about Edge powering this whole thing from the ground up. So if that is an issue now, if it is, and again, I don't know that to be the case necessarily, but if it is true, I highly doubt that it will be the case once we kind of crest over that new change.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, well, we ran a little bit long this week, so I think it's probably time to call it. So I'll say thanks so much for watching today. I think that about does it. As always, a like and a subscribe is much appreciated. Leave a comment below. Add to the live comments if you'd like. Sean, thanks so much for joining me this week, and I can't wait to hang out with you and everyone else watching again next week. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.